All right, good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and today is Tuesday, April 14th. So, one day before the 15th of the month. Some pretty extraordinary price action again today. I was just listening to Bloomberg TV, and Joe Weisenthal said today's price action pretty astonishing, I would say, for the most part. Some really big moves in technology or in the queues, second day in a row for that, and Amazon breaking out to a 52-week high. Just very impressive price action. Really nice. This video will be a little bit shorter than normal. Risk disclaimer: everything here, of course, that we're talking about is for information purposes only. Not giving out any advice or recommendations, anything like that. But we'll just kind of cover, some of the strategies, some of the things that I've been doing in the room that have helped me a little bit. Today, I always think when the market starts up as much as it was today, it's a little bit difficult. I don't typically like to chase that much. I bought a couple small things today, like ZS, which is a name. A lot of names that have been on my radar. It's tough to when the alerts go off, because I set a ton of alerts that basically are at different triggers. It's difficult when the name's up 3 or 4% on the day to say, hey, you're going to get involved. But when you have the momentum like we have had in the market, and you could see this momentum watch list that I've got here. Like Shopify was up over 10% today. You've got AYX was up 9%. AMD. So again, just a lot of momentum in the session today. And what was interesting too is that if we go through and if we look at the indices and the sectors, it really wasn't. Basically in everything in the market today. The regional banks were down well over 4%. Again, they continue to be the laggards right now. Also the energy names. Crude was down today, so it wasn't like everything pushed to the upside. And again, you could see the performance. This is the 1 day change is in this column. Qs were up 4.3%. Again, just a monster day. And they even added. So here's where the momentum was after the open. Even though the total performance was over 4%, but what was really nice is that you could have chased a few things today and did okay. Spies finished up 3% for the day. They also rallied a bit after the open. Small caps did not today. They were up. They actually opened up higher. And I think they actually opened up right around where Qs were, and they opened up better than SPY and or S&P, and they actually sold off through the session, so down 89 basis points. Gold really didn't move throughout the session, so nothing there. Again, and the reason why I look at this, because there's always like there's always a big discussion to have whether or not the overnight moves are greater than the moves that happen in the session. Over time, that is the situation. In the overnight moves, there's more alpha than there is in the cash session, right? But lately, it's been a little bit different. With the volatility that's been present in the marketplace, there's been actually some bigger moves that have been happening through the regular cash hours, right, 9:30 to 4 o'clock. But typically, over time, the overnight market is where the money is made. That's just the fact of the matter. Sorry, I know day traders don't always like to hear that. The VIX, big move in the VIX today. We finally are under 40. By the way, look at this Amazon chart. Pretty amazing to see this thing break out like this quickly, right? I've been bullish, very bullish on Amazon. I own this in a couple portfolios, but just let's face it, just over the last 2 days, from basically where was this thing in the beginning, or the open, 2040 to 2283. I mean, that's a monster move. And the other thing that I'm noticing too is, of course, we're now entering earnings season. Well, a lot of these names, they're doing their run into earnings, right? Which can be better than the actual report, right? So many people look at the event, right? Netflix is breaking out. This was the trade that I had played in the trading room the last couple days because I positioned for this last week in Netflix, but names will run into the earnings report, and then who knows what's going to happen on earnings. Like again, the consensus view is that this quarter is priced in. Unless you've been living under a rock, that they're not going to. Most companies are not going to come out with good earnings, but Netflix, Amazon may be two of those exceptions, right? They have been, I'm sure Netflix has signed more people than they did. Now, of course, there may be an issue there whether or not they don't get incremental revenue the more time that you spend on Netflix. But anyway, that's another argument. But Amazon, you could definitely say that Amazon may. I mean, what better environment, right? It's staying at home, everybody's ordering packages. They're probably leaving them on their porch for a couple days, but I think people are really utilizing Amazon and Amazon services. So that's my argument. That's why it's a holding for me. So really pleased with this. But again, this 2 day move in Amazon is unbelievable. So clearly buyers have come into that stock. But yeah, I was going to talk about the VIX and I got sidetracked by looking at that chart. But yeah, the VIX is now under 40. Sorry, Thinkorswim's a little bit slow today, but yeah, we've now dipped way decently under 40 now, so we're at 37, right? So pretty interesting to see what's going on here. Probably due for some type of a check back in volatility for to kind of creep back up. Maybe that does that somewhere during earnings season. Who knows? One of the things that we talked about in the weekend video, again, I reference that because I put a lot of time into the member weekend video. That's really where I do the heart of my analysis. I actually liked having, I know some people, they don't like it when the market's closed. I really liked that the market was closed on Friday because it just gave me another day to do some analysis, and I really do a lot of thinking when I'm away from the screens. And I know that everybody was again, like the majority view or the consensus view was that we were going to basically stop. In the S&P, right? Everybody was drawing lines on charts saying, me as well. I said, hey, 2774 could be a place where we basically rest. And one of the conclusions that I made was, you have to use a lot of things in your analysis, right? To come up with a decision, it's always more than one factor, right? It's kind of, looking at a whole bunch of different factors and making a decision. And one of the decisions that I made was, even though it looks like we were running into resistance in a few different places, there was no sell signal. Right? So you have to have a little bit of both, right? Because again, my philosophy is I'm never going to time the absolute bottom. I'm never going to time the absolute top. But what I'm going to do is pay attention to the I'm going to pay attention to the turns, right? So we had talked about this in the weekend video. I'm just kind of rehashing a little bit, but the 5-period moving average has really helped me a lot. Again, along with the value areas, but the 5-period moving average, especially when we're out of range, I really look for price to do something different, right? So down here, the first time that we had the price get above the 5-period moving average was here, and that was the turn. We just you don't have a turn yet, and in the other direction. So again, here's the 5-period moving average. We talked about how this was bullish, a crossover here. MACD still working off a bull crossover. So there's not really much to say to give you a sense. Yes, there's resistance like the 50-day moving average in the S&P, but there's no turn here. So you can anticipate all you want, but usually anticipation rather than an actual signal is more of a money losing situation, in my opinion. I mean, and there's the Nasdaq too. Big move out of value for the day. And if we look at this on the weekly as well, I mean, this is pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive all around. So let's talk a little bit about trading, what I did today. Of course, I always at Tribeca Trade Group, everything is transparent. I always show P&L end of month, and all trades during the week, every day, and so on and so forth. So what did we do today, right? So for trades, Baba was a big name that we set up in our Market Webs channel. You could see this was a trade that I actually found this, I think, on Sunday. Was just noticing, started looking at some China names and was noticing that, hey, there's resistance at 198 on multiple time frames. And if this thing can get over 198, 199, it could be off to the races, right? And we also noticed how thin the value area was here, which was what I was saying. So I put on that Baba trade yesterday, and oops, this is the wrong. Let's go to the 1 hour chart in Alibaba. It almost got to that upper target, which should be coming in here, 211. But here's the move outside of value. Really nice upswing. So even looking at it now, it kind of came in at the end of the day. If it happens to maybe check back a little bit, one of my favorite terms, check back to about 201, 202. Then you can maybe set up for a move to 211. So that I don't think that trade is done, or you can just put Alibaba away. I think you still have enough to try to get this 211 in here. So that was a leftover from yesterday. SMH, we talked about how we saw a lot of big order of calls that went up in January, and I kind of said that kind of nudged me to take a position in the long semis, which I like. And I actually took this thing off today because I got a nice gain. If somebody hands you a nice gain like this, I'm happy to take it. Right, so I took that at 10 o'clock this morning, and I actually went into a little bit of Teradyne, which is another stock from our weekend watch list. How's our weekend watch list doing, by the way? Strong to quite strong. This is the research I do over the weekend. The reason why I talk a lot about this is because I put a lot of time into it, but really good. I did not get into every one of these stocks. It would have been nice to get into the Roku. It would have been nice to get into Tesla, which I do own in my long-term account, and I've mentioned that. So I actually took some of that trade off today. But I mean, up 23% for the week. Roku was another one that's up 15%. Now, clearly, they had some news that came out as we were doing the video last night, and then also Apple really strong this week. So yeah, and you could see many of these names, right, are in where I should have this up someplace. Here's the tactical. So I've been kind of tackling this market. I've talked about this now for weeks, that I've been tackling this in kind of a two or three pronged attack, right? Number one, trading, right? Doing a lot of day trading, doing a little bit of swings. I got my gold trade today too, for 420. What's going on here? Sometimes Slack does that, but that's the one attack. The other two is through the tactical portfolio. Here's our holdings and the performance today. I do own Shop and AMD, and so this was a nice day for me. This doesn't happen every day, but that's all. You could see, of course, what we're doing with the tactical portfolio. You could participate in the tactical portfolio. That is in this channel. Right, and you could click on the link and you can go to that. But the last rebalance that I made, which was I think on Thursday, was a pretty good rebalance. Right, I added some Home Depot, I added the Qs in there, and I added DocQ, which is also done pretty well. So again, I'm giving myself a little bit of a pat on the back, excuse me. But it's been a pretty nice week. And then the third, so that's trading account, the Tribeca tactical portfolio, which is kind of a medium term portfolio. And then I've been doing things in the IRA, which is kind of out of the scope of the trading room, but those have been some nice adds as well. So at this point, right, when we're up this much, I think just to kind of give you what my look going forward. Yes, I do think we are getting stretched at this point. I see some bulls, doing some victory laps on Twitter. Sentiment, all that bearish sentiment is getting washed out right now. So like the fear and greed, which we talked about again in the weekend video, is basically back to 50. So all of that has been kind of, I think, taken out of the market. So now you kind of have to be, I don't want to say defensive, but you want to be mindful of your risk in this situation. This has been the step all along the way, but I think at this point, now you have to really kind of control your greed a little bit, versus putting on things here, right? Again, and I see a lot of people on Twitter putting out trade ideas now versus like a couple weeks ago. Like, I'm not going to say any names, but I see some people putting out a lot of trade ideas and like some, small cap momentum names. Now, I don't know. I don't think that that's in my opinion, the wisest thing after the run that we've had in the last couple weeks. I am looking for a little bit of digestion. I don't know if I'll get it. I have some trades on, but I think, I even like took off a trade at the end of the day just because I don't want to. I want to be mindful of the run that we've been on. So if we happen to rally more, that'll be great. But again, I think now is the time to uh, make sure that you're locking in gains and maybe not initiating a whole bunch of new trades. Again, different trading style for me than I see a lot of guys on Twitter who are just starting to initiate trades now or the last day. So in any event, that's my view, and I think trying to control greed here is important, and just remembering what kind of move that we've had from the lows. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.